All right, well, I'm so glad you joined me today. This is the final episode in our series on staying fueled up. If you missed any of the other episodes, don't worry, you can go back and check them out. Hey, today I just want to share a story, and really it's just a personal story. I've been trying to put out different videos to help inspire you, to help give you some tools, but really all of this emanates from the reality that I burned out a couple of years ago. And it actually wasn't the first time, it was the second time. The second time was much worse than the first time. But it reminded me of one of the moments that I had when I began to recognize some of the signs of burnout in my life. And it actually happened because of my truck. I had this old truck at the time. And the interesting thing about this truck was that it was given to me. It was a gift. And it was an awesome truck, but it was very quirky. And so the fuel gauge didn't actually work on it, and first gear, sometimes it would throw you out of first gear. It was a manual truck, and so it was a quirky truck. I was driving across this main bridge in the city that I was living in, and I was all dressed up because I was going to a work meeting. So I had like a collared shirt on. I think I may have even had a tie on that day. I had some slacks, and I'm in my truck, and as I'm coming across this bridge, the truck starts to sputter a little bit. Now, this is an old truck, so sputtering's not like the newest thing it's ever done. It's been doing this kind of thing for a while. So it's sputtering, and I'm beginning to think, oh crap, is this it? Like, is this truck finally ready to die? And as I pull up to the light, the truck does begin to really putter and shudder and shake, and then it dies at the light. And so I'm really panicked, and I'm worried about being late to this meeting. And then I go and I try and start the truck. It won't start. And then finally it fires back up, and the light turns green. So I start to pull through the intersection, and the truck dies again. And so at this point, I'm completely panicked because I'm literally in a shirt, a tie, and slacks, and I'm about to have to push my truck through an intersection. And so I'm going to be super sweaty. And the town I was living in at the time, it's like 110, 115 in the summer. So it's a summertime story. So I'm pouring down sweat, and I jump back in the truck, and luckily I'm able to get it started again. And I pull it out, and I pull into the nearest entrance, to get off the street as I can. It happened to be a gas station. And as I pulled into that gas station, it was like the most expensive gas station in town. I call my wife, and I'm like, babe, I'm having an emergency right now. I need you to come help me. The truck is breaking down. This is it. And my wife was quiet on the phone for just a minute because she didn't want to make me upset, but she kind of quietly said, hey, when's the last time you put gas in the truck? And I'm like, no, it has gas. And, even though the fuel gauge doesn't work, it has gas. And she says, well, maybe just try putting gas in it and see what happens. Now, this is funny because normally I'm pretty good at this stuff. I've actually never run, this is the only time I've ever run out of gas. But sure enough, I had run out of gas because I couldn't gauge where my fuel was. And I was so busy doing the things that I felt called to do. I was so busy helping others, and I had launched a nonprofit in that time. And I had been doing consulting during that time. I was doing all these good things. I'd been a huge part of volunteering or working in my church as a pastor, but then also doing volunteer work in the community. And so I was doing all these good things, but I wasn't paying attention to my fuel gauge. And at that moment, I filled up the gas and was able to make it to the meeting, and I wasn't too sweaty. But that story began to stick with me because a lot of us are like me in that truck. We've got all these things that we're doing. Maybe we even feel called to do them. Building our businesses, working in our schools, showing up for kids, building nonprofits, doing all this amazing things. But often, many of us are like that truck because we have a broken fuel gauge. We can't tell if we're full or if we're empty. We can't tell if we're full or if we're on fumes. And in vehicles, you can't really tell the difference. If you couldn't see the fuel gauge, the vehicle drives the same. It doesn't show any of the signs that it's out of fuel until right at the end. And so that might be you right now. You might be driving along thinking you're doing fine, but you're not recognizing the signs that are there. And so if you are in a place where maybe you're worried about burnout, or maybe you've had moments where you feel like you're going really hard and then you just collapse, those are signs of burnout. And it shows up a lot of times first in your body. So it shows up in your inability to sleep and waking up with stress. It shows up in all of these different ways. Sometimes it can show up in you being more irritable and feeling angry. But whatever it is, if you don't recognize those signs, it'll catch you off guard and you can find yourself stuck without power in the middle of an intersection of life. And so I just want to challenge you as we wrap up this series on staying fueled up, that one of the most powerful things that you can do to stay fueled up is to begin to get some self-awareness and to begin to pay attention to the places and the opportunities where you need to pull in and get refueled. And I'm not just talking about vacation, because a lot of people hope and plan for those 2 weeks in the summer. And so you grind for 350 days of the year, 355 days of the year, hoping or believing that 10 days of vacation are somehow going to fix it, but they're not. The way that you stay fueled up is by having a consistent daily routine. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be small. It can be even as small as 15 to 20 minutes or even 30 minutes. And if you want to hear about the power of 30 minutes, check out the first video in this series. I hope this blesses you. I hope it inspires you. If you're feeling burned out, don't feel without hope, because there's people out there who can help you. I'd love to serve you. And I just believe that our nation, our towns, our families, our kids are all going to be better served when you are reignited and full of hope.